Hello, Pasadena ISD students. Today we're going to work with SLO Reading C Learning Target 1. Specifically, we're going to utilize an FQR trifold in order to make connections to the text. There will be three types of connections that I'll ask you to make. First, though, in this video, I'm going to model so you know exactly how to think and what to think about so that when you make your connections, you're all set. First, I'm going to ask you to make a connection to a fact from the actual text. So that is what the F stands for in your trifold. Then I'm going to ask you to make a connection based on a question that you have. And then finally, I'm going to ask you to make a connection on a personal level. That essentially will be you relating to the text, and that's what the R stands for. So F is for fact, Q is for question, and R is for you relating to the text. Let's get started. You will have an entire selection to work with, but for time's sake, I'm going to work with paragraphs 1 through 5. Decades later and far away, Chernobyl disaster still contaminates milk. More than 3 decades after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine, cows far from the accident site still produce milk with dangerous levels of radiation. Children still drink it, and the problem could persist for decades to come, researchers reported on Friday. In villages as much as 140 miles from the Chernobyl nuclear plant, radioactivity readings in milk are up to 5 times the Ukrainian government's official limit for adults, and more than 12 times the limit for children, according to scientists from the Greenpeace research laboratories at the University of Exeter in Britain and the Ukrainian Institute of Agricultural Radiology. Without large-scale intervention, the radiation will remain above the adult level until at least 2040 and above the child threshold even longer, they predicted. They reported their findings in the journal Environment International. The researchers examined samples from 14 villages in Rivne region in northwest Ukraine, where the milk is consumed by the farmers and their neighbors. They found wide variations in radiation levels, depending on soil conditions and other factors, and it is not clear that the same levels would hold true for large-scale commercial farms. These people know that the milk is unsafe, but they tell us we don't have a choice. We have to feed our family, said Irina Lubanska, a researcher at the University of Exeter, who was the principal author of the study. These are rural communities and the people are poor. So, in order to get set up to do the assignment, you're going to need a sheet of paper. You can use a full sheet of paper or a half sheet of paper. It just depends on how big you write. So you take your paper and you're going to fold it into 3 sections for our trifold, our FQR trifold. And then you'll want to open your trifold, and we're going to work traditionally from the left to the right. So the first section will be labeled fact. I chose to connect to a fact from paragraph 1, and I wrote it down just as you will when it's time for you to complete your assignment. Cows far from the accident site still produce milk with dangerous levels of radiation. What I decided to do was connect to an actual situation that seemed similar. When I was growing up, I remember children being impacted by the high levels of lead in paint, being surrounded by houses or apartments that use lead paint, or even sometimes children put things in their mouths. Those children were poisoned, is what they called it, because of the dangerous levels, and it impacted children's health, their psyche, like their mental capacity. So the lead poisoning was quite dangerous, just as it seems that the radiated milk is dangerous for the children in the Ukraine. Now I'm going to make a connection to something that I have a question about, and I'm going to be thorough in my explanation. I'm going to model that thinking for you so that you're able to complete your trifold equally well. Looking at section 2 of our trifold related to asking a question of the text, I chose to select evidence from paragraph 5. So just like with the first section, with the fact section, we're going to actually pull evidence to respond to for our trifold. My evidence is these people know the milk is unsafe. My question is, why don't government officials provide safe milk? It's not up to just people who reside somewhere to make decisions about where they get their food from. It's up to the people who make the decisions in terms of trading and who they'll actually purchase milk from. So I would think that if everyone is aware that the milk is unsafe, then someone with authority could make better decisions for the people they represent. So that is my connection related to the Q. The government officials don't seem concerned with the safety of their people. That might be a reason why they don't produce more safe options for purchasing milk. Sidebar. One of the reasons why we ask questions of text and then we answer them is so that we understand on a deeper level. So it is helpful to respond to questions by thinking through possible answers and choosing one that fits. The third section of our trifold asks that we relate to something from the article. Again, I pulled evidence from paragraph 5 in order to make my connection. These are rural communities and the people are poor. The personal connection that I'm making, just as you'll make when you do your trifold, relates to the fact that I grew up in a poor community. And I watched people make decisions all the time based on what they needed rather than what they wanted. For example, there were times when people wanted to buy fresh vegetables, but the cost prevented them. So they had to buy the frozen or the canned vegetables, which were on sale. We know that fresh is healthier and it's better for you. But at the same time, if you have to feed a large family, it's better to make sure that everyone eats rather than buying a small quantity that would not satisfy an entire family. Now, you've had the opportunity to walk through the FQR strategy so that you're able to make connections to text. You will have the opportunity to use the remainder of the article that I use to make connections for practice. Additionally, there is another article, totally fresh and new, that you can use to make your connections, one to a fact, one related to a question you have, and then of course try to answer it, and then relating to an actual person, place, thing, situation in the article more personally. I know that you're going to put in the work that's needed to get a great grade and to be successful with mastering this skill. So get ready, get set, go. Good luck.